The summer sun hung low over the small frontier town of Dry Creek, its orange glow bleeding into the dusty streets like a fever dream. Wagons rattled, children shouted, and the clang of a blacksmith's hammer echoed faintly. But none of it touched a woman standing stiffly at the edge of the stagecoach station. Eliza Mae Thatcher clutched her travel-worn satchel in trembling hands. Her dark blue dress, once neat, was dulled by 3 days of travel and more than a few dashed hopes. Her eyes, wide, pale green, and rimmed with fatigue, scanned the crowd. No one approached her. She cleared her throat, then reached into a pocket and unfolded a creased letter. The man who'd written it, Mr. John Campbell, had described himself as God-fearing, financially stable, and in need of a wife. His words had been kind, his promises sincere, but when he arrived and laid eyes on her, his face had twisted. "She's older than I expected," he muttered. Eliza wasn't yet 30, but she bore the wear hard years. After nursing her sickly father until he passed, she'd answered a mail-order bride advertisement. Seeking hope on the frontier. Campbell stepped forward, removing his hat. "I'm sorry, Miss Thatcher. I reckon I've changed my mind." She stood in silence as he walked away. It happened again the next day, with a Mr. Parsons, then a third time with a Mr. Tilley. Each had received her letters, known her story, even complimented her character. But when they saw her, they balked. Maybe it was a scar along her left cheek from a bonfire, or the strength in her shoulders from years of work. Too plain, too proud, too damaged. They never said it, but she heard in every quiet goodbye. By the end of the week, she was living above the general store, working off a room and bored by helping the shopkeeper's wife sweep and sort supplies. Every night, she stared out the window, wondering if she'd made a mistake coming west. Until he walked through the door. Chapter 2. The Man with No Smile. He came in with the wind. Dust clung to his boots and coat like a second skin. A weathered hat shaded his eyes, and when he looked up, Eliza felt it, an ache in the chest she hadn't known she still had the strength to feel. "Whiskey," he said, not looking at her. The shopkeeper shook his head. "We ain't a saloon." The man grunted. "Then coffee. Black." He sat at the table in the back and didn't speak for a long time. Eliza, curious despite herself, brought him a tin cup. "No sugar. Hope that's all right." He nodded. "Fine." Minutes passed before he spoke again. "You're not from here." "No," she replied. "And you?" "Not anymore." She almost laughed, but there was no humor in his tone. "You passing through?" He hesitated, then met her gaze for the first time. His eyes were the blue of mountain ice, sharp, cold, but not unkind. "I was, but I might be staying." That was how she met Colt Remington, a cowboy by trade, though rumor whispered he'd once ridden with outlaws. He had a pistol on his hip, a limp in his left leg, and a 1,000-yard stare that said he'd seen things no man should. Over the weeks, Colt came in often, sometimes for supplies, sometimes just to sit in silence. They spoke little at first, but gradually their conversations lengthened. He learned she liked books, especially poetry. She learned he'd lost his brother to a robbery gone wrong, and had been wondering ever since. He never asked about her scar. She never asked about his limp. One evening, as they shelled in peaches, Eliza said, "You look like a man running from something." Colt looked at her then, real and raw. "Maybe I'm just tired of running." Chapter 3. Fire Under Ash. By the time the leaves turned gold and the nights grew cold, Eliza had stopped waiting for letters and proposals. She no longer looked for the life she thought she'd find out west. Instead, she began to build something quieter, something real. Colt built a fence on a small plot of land just outside town. Folks muttered that he was crazy, that men like him didn't settle down. But he kept hammering, sun up to sundown, and every now and then Eliza would walk out with fresh bread or mended gloves. She noticed the way he watched her, carefully, as if afraid of breaking something fragile. One day, he handed her a folded note. She opened it, her hands trembling. "I don't know what I have to offer a woman like you, but I know I sleep better after seeing you. I work harder after hearing your voice, and I breathe easier knowing you're near. Colt." Tears stung her eyes. She didn't run. Instead, she said, "Ask me properly, Colt Remington." He cleared his throat, awkward and rough. "Would you consider walking beside me, not just a town, but through life?" And she smiled, for the first time in months. "I will." Chapter 4. Storms and Standoffs. Peace never lasts long on the frontier. One night, as the wind howled over Dry Creek, a rider galloped in with blood on his coat and fear in his eyes. "The Miller gang's heading this way," he gasped. 5 men, armed to the teeth. Everyone knew the Millers, wanted in 3 counties, mean as rattlesnakes. They robbed, burned, and killed without remorse. Sheriff Thomas, aging and outnumbered, called a meeting in the church. "We can't fight 5 killers with 6 farmers and a drunk blacksmith." But one voice rose from the back. "I'll stand." Colt stepped forward, hand resting on his revolver. "You," someone scoffed. "You used to ride with outlaws." "I know how they think," he said, "which is why I know they won't stop at robbing the bank. They'll burn the whole town just to laugh." Eliza grabbed his arm outside the church. "Don't do this. You don't owe them anything." He touched her face gently. "I owe you. You saved me. Eliza, let me be worth saving." Chapter 5. Redemption in Firelight. The next day, Dry Creek braced for war. Colt took up position on the roof of the general store, rifle in hand. Others followed his lead. He gave orders like a man who'd been on both sides of a gun. When the Millers rode in, expecting fear and chaos, they found a line of townsfolk ready to defend their own. The first shot cracked through the silence. Gunfire roared. Smoke rose. Eliza stayed hidden in the cellar with children and mothers, heart thudding with every blast. She prayed without words, clutching the scarf Colt had given her. When silence finally fell, she crawled out, choking on dust. Bodies lay in the street, 2 townsmen wounded, 1 dead. But the Millers were gone. Colt stood blooded but upright, his left arm hanging useless at his side. He looked at her with that same quiet strength. "I told you I might be staying." She ran to him, wrapped her arms around him. "You're staying with me," she whispered. Chapter 6. Love Under a Crimson Sky. Colt and Eliza married under a sky stained gold and crimson. It wasn't a grand affair, just a circle of neighbors, a fiddler, and a preacher with a Bible held together by twine. But the look in Colt's eyes when she said, "I do," was worth more than any dowry or diamond. They built their home together. It wasn't much, just wooden nails and stubborn hope, but it stood strong. Eliza planted roses by the porch. Colt fixed the barn with one good arm. At night, they'd sit in rocking chairs, watching the stars wheel above. Sometimes she'd ask, "What saved you, Colt Remington?" And he'd say, "You did. When the whole world looked away, you stayed. You saw a man worth loving, even when I didn't.